Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. Today we've got on Tom Peregrino, the president of Service Nation, while we are here at Service World Expo. Tom is no stranger to the industry. He's been around for a very long time, getting started in the 90s as a sales rep and then jumping into business ownership and running Daffron Mechanical down in Texas. And he eventually got to the point of selling his business in 2021. He was Contractor of the Year that year, so no slough off his back. And he did end up taking over the role as president of Service Nation in this last year. This podcast has been a year in the making, as we were connected to him originally around that time when he was getting promoted into the role of president. And he had a lot of moving things, but this conversation was absolutely fantastic. We went through some of his famous failures from running a business, which some of those were quite hysterical, and I had a great time with that. And then we talked about hiring and recruiting and some of those important steps and some unique tips and tricks that he implemented in his business to make sure that he was truly getting the right person in the right seat on his team. And then, of course, budget and forecasting, because there's no one that can talk about it more than him. It was a fantastic conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. So here is Tom Peregrino.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. We have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. We don't have drinks in front of us right now, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's later.
Maybe we'll stop by another booth. We got Tom Peregrino with us today.
It is good to be here.
Yes.
And I hope I can reveal some of your HVAC success secrets.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, even better.
He's going to drop my pants and show you everything.
Oh, well, we at least, I mean.
You may have to edit
that. Was last night. That was last night.
Hey.
What party were you at?
What happens in Phoenix stays in Phoenix.
Yeah,
there it is. No stranger to the industry. Running Service Nation now.
Yes, sir.
Having a great time doing that. You used to own your own mechanical company as well.
I did, yeah. 21 years.
21 years with Daffron Mechanical.
Yep.
And former Contractor of the Year as well. At one point.
That's true. That's true.
Very accomplished.
There you go, man. I'm barely a little bit of a big deal.
Barely.
Like a little baby big deal.
There it is.
But if I had the name Thaddeus.
There you go.
And I told him this yesterday. I'm like, why don't I have a Thaddeus name, man? That's cool. I mean, Evan is cool. It's cooler than Tom. But Thaddeus, I mean, that's legit. It makes me think of like a Spartan or something manly.
Right, and then you get this instead, and it's like, well.
Yeah.
His name's more impressive than the person.
When I picture him in my mind, and then I look at him, I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, a little bit of a disconnect. It's actually funny. So I met my wife online on Plenty of Fish, and I know it's right in like 2014. But so Thaddeus, and my profile name was the Great Greek Warrior on there, because Thaddeus and Greek Warrior. And so when she saw my photo, she thought I was actually Greek. And then she met me, and she's like, "Oh, this fucker's not Greek."
But you still went there on your honeymoon.
We still went to Greece on our honeymoon. There we go. Second honeymoon 2.0. Yeah.
I've only been there once. I want to go back. Greece is amazing.
It is phenomenal. Where'd you go in Greece?
Santorini, Mykonos, Athens. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Took my wife. Super romantic. It's an awesome place. I can't wait to go back.
Athens is crazy. When you go back, you go up to Meteora. And they have it's up north, and then so we went there. They have temples built, like monk temples built on top of. Like you look at some of this, you're like, how the fuck did you build that?
Wow.
Literally, colander of rock going up, and then a house on top of it. And you're like,
wow,
man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I want to go back.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's so Service World Expo 2024 in Greece.
Hey,
there we go.
Hey,
unofficially,
I love it. Right? I love it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
All
right.
Well, how'd you get your start? How'd you get into the trades? What attracted you to you in the first place?
Dude, I don't know how I ended up here. I'll be honest, man. I was working at a bank in a Walmart. I'm not kidding you. It's 1995. I'm working at a bank in Walmart, and I was broke, and I had a baby on the way. And I tell my wife, I said, man, these kids are expensive. I don't know how we're going to afford them.
Right.
I got to make some more money. So back in 1995, what you do is you open up a newspaper and you look in the help wanted ads, and there was a help wanted ad for what turns out to be a comfort consultant in the HVAC business. And it was a sweet ad. It was like, at that time, earn up to $75,000. No experience required. We'll give you paid training.
It sounds too good
now,
to be
it
true.
was 100% commission, which
Right.
I didn't tell my wife that because she would have cried.
It was a hard no.
She ended up crying when I told her, I am going to go do it. I got the job. And she's like, are you kidding me? And at that time, I think I was making $26,000 working at that bank as assistant manager. Started as a comfort consultant. And sure enough, within 12 months, I doubled my income.
Wow.
Which back in 1995, 96, hey, Ed, to double your income,
It's a big
that
deal.
was a game changer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never looked back. I discovered the home service industries and how amazing they can be and how you really can make some awesome freaking money doing it. And so I was a comfort consultant for about 5 years. And then a real good friend of mine decided to start his own company. He was a service tech. He had one of those entrepreneurial seizures, and he said, hey, come join me, help start my company. If I can't fix it, you sell it. And so his last name was Daffron. That's where the name Daffron came from.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so he and I in 2000 started, and we just started working our magic. We made every single mistake you can make in the book. Every single mistake. I can teach more people about what not to do than what to do. So we just rocked along up until 2010. And then 2010, he said, hey, you want to buy me out? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to
Nice.
buy you out. I want to have an opportunity to run it. So I took over in 2011 was my official start date, began rebuilding the company. And in 2016, that's when I found Service Nation. So up until, for 16 years, I don't know about any best practices and systems and processes. For 16 years, I just shot from the hip.
Right.
But when I joined Service Nation in 2016, man, it was a game changer. Boo!
Like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, and it's been a great ride. So my younger partner, who's 10 years younger than me, around 2021, we started talking about me selling to him buying me out. He was ready. He's 10 years younger. He was like a brother, like a son to me in many ways. And so I'm like, hey, do you want it? And he goes, yeah. So he ended up buying me out, which gave me an opportunity to start working for Service Nation and helping our members, which is where I'm at here today.
Right.
Well, and giving back to the organization that allowed you to do that.
Yeah. The more and more I started hanging out with other contractors that were in the trenches and that were, bleeding, sweating, crying, all that kind of stuff, the more and more I was hanging out with them and helping them, the more I realized, you know what, man, this is what I want to do. I've done all the HVAC stuff. What I want to do is just help them not make the same mistakes I've made. And so that ended up being one of the biggest reasons why I sold the company to my partner. I'm like, dude, I've done this for 21 years.
Yeah.
This is your chance to carry on. I want to go help as many other contractors as I can. And so this is a great platform for me to do that.
Nice.
Amazing.
Well, and like one of the things you mentioned, you could tell a lot of people what not to do versus what to do, and I think that's a fascinating topic because a lot of times people talk about all the pomp and the circumstance, but they don't really talk a lot about the failures or things that went wrong because they're always focused on the good things, right? So I guess at looking at that and what not to do, what would be the top 3 things that you have learned throughout your illustrious career that you could tell somebody that? And let's put a size limit into this, and let's take a look at the 1 to 3 to 5 million per year contractor.
Oh yeah. I appreciate you narrowing that focus because it's oftentimes smaller contractors. That size is where they're really trying to figure out how to operate a company well. They're really trying to, they probably got so many hats that they're wearing, and they're just putting out fires right and left. So in no particular order, here's some of the recommendations I can give your listeners based on my experiences, is if you have a CSR position open and an ex-stripper comes in to apply, Do not hire them. Ever.
No matter how tempting it is.
Ever. No matter what you think, don't do it.
Did you do that?
Of course I did. And it was a freaking train wreck.
Did the voice match the exterior at least? Like, did they have a good phone voice?
I'm telling you, the morale in my service department was never better when she was there. But I couldn't get him to get out of the office.
Nobody wanted to run a call?
And the other ladies wanted just to kill her. I mean, a really nice lady. Don't get me wrong. She was really nice. But, you know, back then we were basically, hey, can you fog a window? Or fog a mirror, you're hired. I mean, that's a lot of times some of the things that you do when you're a smaller contractor. It's like, hey, we'll just throw anybody in that position. And I'm thinking, well, hey, you know, she's got a pulse and she can fog a mirror and, you know, she's nice to look at. Okay, yeah, hire her. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. You know, that's that's one of the things that come to mind when we start talking about that. One other thing I can tell you is when you're working with your installers, and you start seeing their teeth fall out, that's called meth mouth. And that's probably a good opportunity to start doing some drug testing.
Right.
Got it.
I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
We went through one season early on when we were smaller. So what I learned is don't just drug test them when you hire them. That's what I used to do. Instead, you need to do monthly random drug testing. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, it was super, super sad for my particular time on my journey is, I mean, meth went all through my install department.
Wow.
Wiped out everybody except for one.
Wow.
All of them got hooked up on meth. It was terrible.
Right.
It was terrible. I hated to see what happened to those guys, and I wish I would have been able to catch it sooner by just doing some of the best practices of monthly random drug testing. Yeah. What do you think about those? Those are pretty good ones, right?
Well, you know, it blends two topics, right? Recruiting and HR.
Right.
You know, and when you think about recruiting, I mean, that's a big thing that a lot of people I think get wrong. They have troubles, they struggle because it's like I can't find guys, and other people are like I have a lineup outside the door for people wanting to work in my organization. So, you know, those that are again, and let's go back to that 1 to 3 million, 5 million range. You know, if they're trying to hire people, but they don't have any previous knowledge in recruiting. So they don't end up with a stripper in their office. What would you say to them?
All right. So what I would recommend them do is get a book written by Dave Ramsey called Leadership. So if you've never heard of Dave Ramsey, check him out. There is a book. He's a super mega uber successful business guy. And he has a way of operating your company that is just fantastic. It applies to, you know, in and out of the home service business, but in Entree Leadership, there's a section there on hiring and on recruiting, and he has 12 steps. And when I stumbled upon those 12 steps, I said, "This is what we're going to do to make sure we hire the best people, to keep the crazy people out.
Yep.
We're going to follow these steps. We're not going to deviate from the steps." I'll mention one thing that was really, really cool, and it's counterintuitive, and it sounds weird when you do it. One of the steps is to interview the spouse. So you have the candidate come in, and he's jumping through all these hoops in the hiring, and then basically how you set it up is you say, "Hey Thaddeus, you know, we really want you to work for the organization, but we want to make sure your spouse feels good about where you're going to be working because you're going to be spending a lot of time here."
Yep.
And it's not uncommon that they may have some questions too.
Right.
Would it be okay if me and my wife and you and your wife, if we go grab a bite to eat? Would that be okay? They always say yes.
Yep.
This is further on in the 12 steps. So this is about step 6. So we go and have either lunch or we go have dinner. You know, our spouses, we're all together. But what we're looking for is we're looking to see if the spouse is crazy, because you'll see it. You'll see it. There was a few times we saw crazy, but we loved the guy so much that we just said, we'll just let it slide, and it always came back to haunt us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you do that at scale then? Like if you're trying to if you got to go out for lunch 5 days a week, 10 times lunch and dinner, like how do you handle and manage that at scale?
Well, so the bigger and bigger you get, you teach your leadership teams, so you teach your managers that system and process and the strategy behind that. So, in the beginning it was just me going to have lunch or dinner.
Right.
And then it was me or my partner, depending upon if we were busier, and then it became me and our 5 other managers that, any of them could be empowered to go to lunch and look for crazy.
Yep.
Right.
Look for crazy.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised how often we would find crazy.
Wow.
Because once you let crazy in, you got to live with it. Mm-hmm. You got to deal with it.
And so does that employee, right?
Yep.
That's what they go home to every day.
Absolutely.
And you don't think that's going to impact their work?
Absolutely, yeah. Another thing that was in the 12 steps is getting a budget from them. Mm-hmm. So the way we set that up is we basically say, I'm just going to use you again.
Sure.
Hey, Thaddeus, we want to make sure that we're compensating you right. The last thing we want to do is underpay you. Mm-hmm. That's that'll just frustrate you to no end. So would you mind just writing down just what your expenses are, and just to make sure, now this is further on in the hiring steps. Mm-hmm. If they want to be part of your organization, if their eyes light up and they like what you have to offer, when you say, hey, would you mind just, can we just sit down and list your expenses to make sure that whatever we're paying is going to more than cover that?
Right.
They always do that.
Right.
They always do that. And what's interesting is that may be the first time they've ever done that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then they realize, oh, man, I can't live off of what you're paying me.
Right.
And
there's more month at the end of the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By doing that, it solved a lot of the problems I used to have, where I would hire somebody, and then the next thing you know, they're hitting us up for money all the time.
Right.
Or they're just coming in with legitimate issues that are dealing with money.
Right.
They're like, man, I can't pay my rent.
Right.
And now their problem is becoming your problem.
Right. Well, I love that philosophy, because, and especially like you're bringing the spouse in and you're having them write down a budget. Now they're not just an employee, they're not just a number. Like, that's a culture thing.
Right.
That's a huge culture thing. And like we could go down a rabbit hole, I'm sure, about financials and how there's a lack of understanding and planning and education in and around that. But I don't think we need to go there. But that also shows, now if they have questions on that, now you can take a point of education, and now you can educate them. Even if they're not going to turn out to be an employee, you've now just taken that value first approach to be able to help them set themselves on a better course in life.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Absolutely. Well, and I've heard the aspect of taking someone out for a meal before hiring them to see how they interact with a server, right? And
that's true. Yep.
And being able to see that, but now you're getting to see how they interact with their spouse.
Oh, yeah.
How do they treat them?
Yeah.
And of course, are they crazy? Because we need to know that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, as you've already identified, but then also how are they interacting with the server? And now you get that three-pronged approach to it. I really love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worked out really well. The other one I'll highlight, and then we can talk about whatever else you like to, is we do a behavioral predicting assessment, and that tool, there's many tools out there. The particular one that I'm a fan of is the DISC assessment. And so in the hiring process, we do their DISC assessment for many, many reasons. One, we want to make sure that the way they're wired is suitable for the role.
Right.
So, depending upon their role, there's different temperaments that will do better than others. Yep. And so making sure, okay, this they're going to thrive in this position because they're wired for this position. The other thing is it really gives us an idea of how we need to onboard them and how we need to continue to train them, support them all along the way. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. So if somebody on the DISC profile comes in at a high C, what we call conscientious, critical thinker, detail-oriented, then when we onboard them, the onboarding process is probably going to take 2 to 3 times as long.
Right.
Because they want detail. That makes them feel good, so that way they can perform well. Now, Conversely, we hire somebody that is a mega extrovert, what we call a high I. They just, let's go.
Yep.
Let's just go. Much, much faster. Hey, we'll figure this out on the go. And they're not frustrated by that. Put me in, throw me in, let's go. And so we can speed up their onboarding.
Yep.
Hopefully that makes sense, yeah.
No, 100%.
No, I really love that.
Yep.
Could you break down some of the key roles in the organization really quick and what kind of characteristics you would be looking for, whether they were a high I, D, C? Like if you have a CSR, what would you be looking for?
Yeah, so a CSR on the disc profile, you're probably looking for somebody that's real compassionate, a people-oriented, compassionate, willing to sit there and listen and connect with the person. So on the disc profile, that's probably going to be an S, what we call a stabilizer.
Or a stripper.
You're triggering me, Evan. Don't do it. I got a little bit of PTSD from that still. But yeah. So S's are really good. They love people. They want to make people happy. They want to please them. They're consistent. So those are great for CSRs. If you look at a controller or an accountant, somebody that's handling your bookkeeping and your AR, if you're somebody that needs to focus and not talk to people, then you're wanting somebody that has a high C.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go into the corporate world now. So you are now running Service Nation. For the first time in a very long time, you've got people that you need to answer to. And the speed of implementation that got you to where you were when you were running your mechanical business is no longer applicable. How difficult is that for you?
It was hard as hell.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It was hard as hell. It was a huge, major adjustment. Now, I'm not saying it was hard as hell because it was 100% the corporate environment's fault. It was a mixture of the fact that I was a contractor. I was the man. I called the shots. I could do whatever the hell I wanted to, whenever the hell I wanted.
Yep.
I could pull the trigger super fast. Now, the corporate world is like, no. We have layers of systems and processes, and to a certain degree, bureaucracy and many, many hoops you have to jump through. Now, I will say on paper, a lot of that makes total sense. I've learned that,
Right.
I've learned that over time. Okay, I see why they developed this long process. But sometimes I would argue that it slows innovation down.
It does.
Yep.
They're afraid to make a mistake.
Yes. Yeah, it slows things down. And for me, being dropped into that environment was a huge, huge adjustment. The first few quarters, in my new role, man, I was just really, really frustrated. Now, I will tell you the other thing that was super frustrating, but I think you guys are going to laugh at me, and I hope you do laugh at me, is this whole corporate world and their vernacular was totally new. I'm sitting in these rooms, and I'm the dumbest guy in these rooms, trying to participate in these meetings, and they're like, hey, Tom, what's the MRR on that? Can you give us the MQL and the SQL, and what's the CAC? What's the LTV? What kind of levers are you going to pull? And I remember one time I was talking to, I won't name their name, but I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell you're saying. And he was kind of caught off back, but he just laughed and like, I'm just telling you, I don't know what you're saying. Right. And he's like, okay, LTV means lifetime value. CAC means, customer acquisition cost. I used other terminology as a contractor, but so I had to learn that terminology.
Right.
And that, I got a kick out of that, man. I got a kick out of that. Yeah, it's another language.
It's a whole new world. Right. Absolutely.
It's a whole new world.
The thing that you said there is you were the dumbest person in the room,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
that also, I mean, some people's ego has a tough time taking that. Their pride has a tough time taking that.
Oh,
so,
it was hard.
So I guess, how did you shift your mindset then to be okay with that?
So, the way I'm wired, my glass is half full.
Yep.
So sooner or later, even if I'm in conflict or if I'm in a tough situation, I figure out a way to change my perception. And so, as I mentioned, as I was getting educated on these new systems and processes, some of them were really good. I'll give you an example. The way I did budgeting and forecasting as a contractor isn't nearly sophisticated as in the corporate world. I mean, the corporate world does such a fantastic job keeping track of these numbers, the weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly forecasting, adjusting, tweaking. That was superior to what I was doing. And at first, I didn't understand it. Then I was frustrated that I had to try to figure out how to navigate it. And then now where I'm at, I'm like, I get it. Okay, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. The other thing I really liked is the way they would do everything they could to leverage technology.
Right.
You know, leverage technology any way they possibly can. Not be afraid of technology. You know, being a Gen Xer, I'm 52 now. You know, for many years now, I've started getting resistant to the newer technology. And Service Nation isn't scared of technology, and our parent company, EverCommerce, I mean, they're a SaaS company. Yeah. They're all about software, and so they've really helped me embrace just hey, technology is your friend. It's gonna be awesome. We'll show you how to operate it. And so, like Salesforce, for example, you know, I had my little CRM, blah blah, and they're like, hey, check out Salesforce, and I'm like, oh my God. Salesforce is amazing. This is great. So that's the cool stuff. That's the cool stuff. But yeah, in the meantime, I had to really wrestle with lack of control, and I had to give that up. And as I told my team members, and I've told our parent company, EverCommerce, that I really like. I really do. Okay, I get it. Not only do I get it, but I want to keep doing it, because I know this is going to make a difference for our members, right, and our team members, and then the members that we take care of. It's worth it. It's worth me, you know, getting a little bit better, maturing, flexing, you know, being more humble and open to change. All right, it's worth it. It's cool.
So how do you take that then? So obviously the big corporate machine, you know, and all the layers and complexities and all that they do, and strip that down to repurpose it out for contractors. Because, you know, Service Nation does that, right? They help contractors. How do you break that down in more simplified terms so that they're not left saying, "Hey, what the heck's LTV mean?"
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know, the fundamentals of big corporations and the fundamentals of running a contracting business, I think there's just so many things that are similar. But to your point, you know, we need to simplify it, you know, when we take this stuff back to the contractors. Now, so I'll give you an example. So Service Nation, EverCommerce, really, they feel that performance reviews are really, really important. And there's a certain way you can do performance reviews. You can make performance reviews really, really complex. You can do different technologies to do performance reviews. But one of the things you can move over into the contracting world is, are you doing performance reviews? And if you are you doing them on a consistent basis? And if you're doing performance reviews, are you actually doing something with it? Or are you just checking a box? So that would be one example. The other thing big corporations, you know, are all into are the 360 surveys or the NPS scores. You know, always polling their people to see, hey, how's it going? How are we doing? How are you doing? And there's a lot of contractors they don't do that. You know, and they should be doing that. And there's really you can just do a constant contact, or no, use SurveyMonkey. Back in the day, I did SurveyMonkey to do my 360 review to check on, you know, how are we doing? How are we taking care of you? The corporate world, they have much more sophisticated tools, but you can make it simple. Yep. You're going to get similar results.
Well, and I think why this is a really important conversation, and I probably should have prefaced this beforehand to keep people engaged, but, you know, whatever, we'll do it now. The reality is there's been a ton of private equity that has come into this industry.
Yeah.
And a lot of people make that decision to bring them in and don't do what you did, which was completely exit from the company, right?
Yeah.
They're still in it. And the ramifications of that decision of having a business partner now and having someone that you're answering to are really serious. And you need to take into consideration what that relationship is going to be like with that partner.
Yeah, there are lots of pros and lots of cons when it comes to private equity. Another way I word it is, man, I personally have a love-hate relationship with private equity.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what I love about private equity, okay? If I was a baby boomer and I'm done and I'm ready to sell, whether they're tired or they've built up their business to be successful, these private equity companies are a fantastic exit strategy.
Yep.
I love that. I mean, I know so many of the contractors that have chosen that path, and it was a home run for them, and it made a huge difference in their life. I mean, that you just can't say that doesn't matter, you know. So that's what I love about what private equity brings to the table. The other thing I love about it is, you know, there's some that aren't ready to get out of the trades, but they need help. So they're willing to have private equity come in. They stay on board at maybe 15, 20, 30% ownership still, but now the private equity can help them with faster growth, or maybe bring on more benefits, more, you know, better systems and processes. So it's kind of, you know, a partner. Now, what drives me crazy is there's some bad private equity companies out there.
Yep.
There's some bad ones out there. And what I've seen
It's like
them,
anything else, right? There's good and bad in everything.
there is.
Yep.
And you know, and so it's kind of tough to on the surface, they all look great. But unfortunately, you know, I've heard of far too many horror stories where they come in, they destroy the existing culture. Especially, you know, and I hate to see a good culture that gets destroyed because the focus and the prioritization moves away from true customer service to get the money.
Yep.
Get the money. Squeeze squeeze as much as you can out of your cost of goods sold. Blow up your gross margin as far as you possibly can. Get as much net as you can. So it was good. I'd say it's good. I got off track just for a second. I got distracted by Tommy Mello because he's buff over here.
He must have been hitting the gym lately.
Like right before he got on stage.
Right?
You
Yeah.
got to get your pump on, right? Like,
Yeah.
right?
So the bad private equity companies just irritate me.
Right.
You know, they're all about, you know, I know it's all about flipping it. I get that, but I think there's good ways you can do it, and then there's bad ways you can do it.
Yeah. Well, and there's a whole dark side of private equity too, and like I don't think we have time today to get into that whole topic, but there is that part of it that people just don't realize, or the private equity company. You know, and I shared with somebody yesterday. It's not my idea. You know, somebody yesterday who, you know, sometimes private equity companies just come in and they want to go direct to the contractor. And now the contractor isn't getting their best value because they didn't use somebody like a Brian Cohen or a Patrick Lang, or, you know, insert any other, you know, advisor here in brokerage firm to be able to help the owner get what they're worth, right? And that's kind of the scary part too that can happen.
I absolutely agree. I mean, one of the things we try to do as best as we possibly can when the situation arises is educate our members on how the game is played.
Right.
And once they understand how the game is played, then I think, you know, they'll get better results, depending upon what they decide to do. I'm not necessarily saying that they always have to go to an M&A firm like SF&P, or they necessarily always have to go to a PE, but depending upon what you decide to do, you need to know how the game is played.
Correct.
Because then you're going to be able to be on the winning side more than the losing side. Yeah.
No, well, and it's understanding the business and what you can get and what you can't get, and what's good things and what's bad things. And, you know, having something like a Service Nation and having somebody who's also exited a business, and, you know, you did it differently. You went and sold it to somebody that was in it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that, you know, carries on some of the brand too, and you know who's going to be taking it over. And sometimes that's what an owner wants, is to be able to have longevity in what they've created. So.
Yeah, that the time in which they get ready to exit, whenever that time comes to exit, I really think that there's a 50-50 dynamic that is taking place. Half of the decision to sell, however you decide to sell, is emotional. Mm-hmm. And you just can't it's fuzzy. It's it's misty. It's not. You can't put your hand. That emotional component is it's real, and you got to wrestle with it. The other part is the easiest part, which is the financial part.
Yep.
All right, this is what the number's going to be.
Yep.
This is what I have to look forward to. That emotional side. I mean, I remember back in 2021, I had to wrestle with that.
Yep.
What's my purpose? What am I going to do? What's my wife going to think of me? Who am I? What's my identity?
Right.
Is this okay? Is this right? That's a whole emotional component. The financial, that's the easy part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to keep going, but I know that we have some time constraints here, and you got to get back to what you're doing. So, if somebody wants to reach out and they're interested in exploring what Service Nation can do, what are some of the best ways for them to get in touch with you guys?
Yep, just get online, go to servicenation.com.
Yep.
And boom, they can check us all out, see what we're all about. They can, of course, reach out and talk to us if they want to.
Sure.
So yeah, either through their phone or desktop or whatever, just go to servicenation.com. Check us out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I had two questions. One will be our final question, and the other one is, okay, a lot of best practice groups out there.
Yeah.
Why Service Nation versus other ones?
That's a good question. So this is how I think about us. It's the same way I thought about my competitors. There's plenty of business to go around.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not a zero-sum game. There's plenty of business to go around. And we all basically want to do the same thing, which is help out contractors in the home service business. So, service level, we're similar. But the reason why we have the tagline of Total Contractor Solutions is because we would argue we're the Amazon of best practice groups. There's some best practice groups that are out there, and what you're going to get from them is like kind of what you're going to get at a convenience store. And then there's some out there kind of like what you're going to get when you go to Target. And then there's some out there what you're going to get when you go to the mall in terms of choices and variety and all these other stuff. But we're the Amazon. We got everything. We got everything. Sometimes it's just overwhelming in terms of the amount of stuff we have, the ability to leverage our buying power, all the education and information that we have online, all the coaches we have, 70 to 80 coaches. I don't remember what the last count was. An army of coaches to help you. Huge community, putting on these mega conferences, graphics, and gosh, you name it. So, yeah, Total Contractor Solutions. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we really think we are the biggest, and it's for a reason. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Hold on, Tommy. You're the man.
Thank you, guys.
You're the man.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you again.
You're going to be on the show next week. We'll see you Wednesday.
Hey.
It was a blast. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate it. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's such a down-to-earth, humble human. And for the size of the business, a lot of people think that you'd be stuck-up prick, but he is not a stuck-up prick. He is super cool and human and down-to-earth. So, Tom, it's been great. It's been great.
It has been good.
It's been a good show. Thank you for dropping some knowledge. I'm sure we could probably chat for hours, but we do have one final question here for you.
Okay.
What is one question that you wish people would ask you more, but don't?
What is one question you wish they could ask? How can you help me solve my problems?
Okay. It's a very open-ended question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every contractor's got problems, but for whatever reason, whether it's ego or pride or whatever, oftentimes they lead in with, hey, this is what I'm doing great. This is what's going well. But underneath that, they got problems.
Yep.
I know, because I was a contractor for 21 years. It doesn't matter how good you look. Yep. You got some problems.
Yep.
And if they're able to say, hey, this is my problem, this is what I'm dealing with, then we can jump in and solve it. We can. There's nothing they can throw at us that we haven't dealt with before.
Yep.
But sometimes they just don't share it.
Yep.
I
having a conversation earlier at lunch. One 1 minute? Okay. Having a conversation earlier at lunch, and if you treat everybody, 100% of the people you have a conversation with that they're having a crisis, you're right 90% of the time. Right, so it's just fascinating, and that comes full circle right to the very beginning of the show where we talked about strippers. So, well, we have probably 30 seconds left on our camera. So, Tom, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me on, and I enjoyed it. This was fun.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And until next time.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, 2 quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.